Alright guys, thank you everybody for coming down here tonight. It's just a very short notice event. Decided to promote through social media, but reach out to some of our supporters here in LA and some of the people that are maybe new to our network. But tonight, you're going to hear the word rhino a lot, okay? But when you hear the word rhino, I want you to think of Mother Nature, because this animal is a metaphor for Mother Nature and what we're doing to the planet. It's an animal that's hardly evolved for millions of years and now being pushed closer and closer to extinction. And that's because of human greed. And this animal, and this little guy here is Piglet. He now weighs about a ton. He runs 35 miles an hour and he has around 20 to 25 pounds of rhino horn on his head. Now, rhino horn is selling for up to $40,000 a pound in Southeast Asia. It's been sold for use in traditional medicine and also being sold as a status-related good. And we can get onto that more in question time once I finish the talk in about 3 hours. I'm going to show you something now, which I'm not showing it to you for shock effect. I want you to understand what we go through as rangers and people that are out there living in the bush, living in a place where we have to protect these animals. Now the thing is, our rangers, a lot of them leave their families behind for up to 11 months of the year. When you leave your family behind for 11 months of the year, what you leave your family behind for, that becomes your family. These animals are like our children. This is a short video of a mother lying next to her dead calf. Okay, now the mother was shot through the spine, so she wasn't killed. Now, we had to put her out of her misery. We didn't have a heavy caliber rifle with us at that time. All we had was an AK-47. The guy that fired the first 4 shots to try and put this rhino out of their misery is a former sniper, special operations sniper from Afghanistan. He broke down after the 4th shot and had to give the rifle to someone else to finish the job. So this is how sad it is for us. This is the truth. This is the reality of what is going on out there. We're fighting a war. That's the realities of what we have to deal with every day on a regular basis. And it's not just the rhino, it's all the other animals in these ecosystems. So how does an Aussie, you're late.
Sorry, what do you want me?
50 push-ups.
I'm not gonna sit. Sorry, everybody.
You're up for 2 wherever you want, man. Yeah, here's a chair.
We'll squeeze in the back. Apologies.
You won't be able to see the screen from there.
Okay.
Oh, great.
Thank you.
This guy deserves special treatment.
No, I don't.
So how does an Aussie end up in Southern Africa trying to defend wildlife? Okay, so my background was Navy clearance diver, which is your version of the SEALs. And then after September 11th, the Australian government formed a unit that they termed the first and last resort for a terrorist attack on home soil in Australia. That was the Tactical Assault Group, made up of the different special operations groups in Australia and Navy clearance divers. And for the first time ever in Australian history, direct entry into special forces was opened up to the Australian public. At the end of all that, there was about 60 guys left. 50, 60 guys left that formed the TAG, the Tactical Assault Group, the spearhead of Australia's response to a terrorist attack. And I started off in water platoon and then went across to sniper platoon and then served out the rest of my time with the Australian military there. 2005, I left the military because I wanted to go to Iraq, and I wanted to go to Iraq to make money. Guys like me, with the skills I had and the background and experience that we had, were being offered hundreds of thousands of dollars a year to go over and work for these private military companies. Now, these private military companies were being hired back by the US government because this huge vacuum of special forces soldiers from around the world that are now working for these PMCs were actually needed. These units and these organisations were needed to perform tasks that the military used to perform. So I went over there, worked initially in close protection, but then got involved with training the Iraqi Special Police, starting to learn lessons there in terms of dealing with training of people from rural areas that had very little background in any sort of military or policing training, but also had very low literacy. So I'm taking lessons there that I didn't know I was going to be using in the next life. I finished up there after 12 tours. Tours anything from 2 weeks to 6 months. But 12 times I got back onto an aeroplane, left my family behind, and decided to go to war to make money. In 2009, I left for Africa. I had a carry-on bag. I got on an aeroplane and flew to Africa. I had a set of boots and carry-on luggage. No check-in luggage, one-way ticket. I went to Africa looking for a fight, not a cause. I joined the military not to serve my country. I joined the military because it was an adventure for me. It was something cool, and it was something about Damien Mander. I went to Special Forces because that was the next coolest thing that I could do at the time. I went to Iraq to make money. I didn't go there to try and free the Iraqi people. I went to Africa looking for a fight, not a cause. Everything was about me, and it was about what I could do to impress my mates, or the greatest challenge for me. And I went to Africa and started spending time walking around the southern part of the continent and all these national parks, and saw what I would say is the most underpaid, least appreciated groups of people in the world. These people leave their families behind for up to 11 months of the year. They go out and risk their life, not so much from the poachers they're trying to stop, but from the animals they're trying to protect. These are dangerous animals: elephant, rhino, lion, leopard. And so here was me, seeing what was going on. There was a 50 push-up late.
Right now or after?
Well, you can do them now, it's 50, but if you wait, they accrue interest. So, you might not be able to see tucked around there, guys, so I don't know if we can squeeze up
There's
anyway.
some seats over here.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Somebody can sit in the special.
someone can sit in a special
chair.
the vegan chair.
Not a good chair to have.
There's a chair over here. Yeah.
So there were two things happening in parallel here. There was me seeing the hard work these rangers are doing and everything that they've given up to go out there and protect nature. And you know, these guys, it doesn't matter if you're into watching National Geographic, you like going on safari, you like looking at pictures of animals, you run an environmental NGO, anything to do with research and development in these countries. Everything really comes back to one group of people. And these are the people that are tasked with protecting the heart and lungs of the planet, out there on the front lines. These are the guys who are the last lines of defense for nature. In parallel with that, I started seeing what was happening with animals. I'm a guy that grew up that did not give a shit about animals, did not give a shit about conservation. For me, a conservationist was a hippie with dreadlocks that chains themselves to trees or bulldozers or whatever. Okay, so I see a buffalo. It's got its back leg caught in a wire snare. Now the trackers can tell how long this animal's been caught there. They said 2 days. 2 days it fought for so hard and so long that it ripped its pelvis in half. And when we shot it to put it out of its misery, just like we had to do that rhino there, it gave birth to a stillborn calf. So this change is starting to go on in my heart and in my mind at this point. And the catalyst for me, which is a build-up of everything I'd done, the transition I'd been through, the catalyst for me was patrolling through the bush and seeing an elephant with its face cut off. And here's this huge, majestic animal killed for a few kilograms of ivory. Animals don't want a paycheck, they don't want a car, they don't want a house. Animals don't have egos. All an animal wants to do is survive, and we as a species are continually taking that away from them. And so here I was, I've got a shitty set of skills. And I'll tell you, there's no jobs in the local paper for a sniper when you leave her up. I've got a shitty set of skills, and I've got money that I'd made, which, you know, I'm fortunate enough to get involved with property investment at a young age. Nothing big by Beverly Hills standards, but what I put into setting this organisation up was 100% of what I had. And not only that, I left my family behind in Australia, and I decided to move to Africa. So I came to a fork in the road of my life where I said I was full of shit. Everything up until then had been about Damien Mander. And people can turn around and say thank you for your service, or thank you for this, thank you for that, but it was about me. So it was time to start doing things that weren't about me. It was time to start doing something for not only someone else, but something else, and those that don't have a voice. And so I set this organisation up, the International Anti-Poaching Foundation, to protect animals. And think of the bigger organisations that operate in conservation, think of them as the army. These are the ones that do demand reduction in Asia. They do policy change at government level. They do community work. They do on-the-ground work. They do research and development. They do everything. Think of that as the army. Think of what we do as SEAL Team 6. Okay, so we are a small group of guys that work at management levels, that go into shitty situations, to get big jobs done with small resources. That is what special operations do. So 7 years ago, we set up this organisation. We're now registered in 5 countries, including the USA as a 501c3. We didn't set up to do a lot of things. We set up to do one thing, and that is to go to the front lines of the world wildlife wars and deal with protecting elephant and rhino. And people may say, well, you know, why just elephant and rhino? You know, what about all the other animals? The reason is, when you protect an elephant and a rhino, these are the hardest animals to protect. It's the animals that poachers are willing to go to the greatest lengths to kill because of the value of their ivory and the value of their horn. And so when you protect these animals, when you develop, implement, and fund a strategy that protects these animals, everything else in that ecosystem is being looked after. So to put that in perspective, you look at things like global warming, deforestation, human population growth. These are things that we don't know if we're going to solve in a generation, or if we're going to solve it all, or if it's going to be the end of our species. But what we do know is that the most immediate thing we can do right now today is to hold on to what we have left. And so I go to work every day knowing that what I do is not the answer. There's whole government departments trying to figure out how to change policy, how to do demand reduction in Asia, how to get communities to a point where they don't need to poach. My job and our skills, we're the guys that stop the hemorrhaging. We're the ones that go out there on the front lines and hold on to what we have left. And for me, you know, I mean, I am now what I would say, or I feel as I'm a spokesperson on behalf of all animals. And I could be working anywhere, trying to, whether it be working in factory farming or fur factories, whatever it may be. I just happen to have a niche set of skills which are most relevant for saving animals in Southern Africa. So that's why I've chosen that as my place to do the job that we do. Sean, you know Moby, can you make sure he doesn't give me any copyright infringement? This is seeing these animals in their natural world and the opportunity to help protect them is the greatest opportunity I've had in my life. The unfortunate thing is the international community is going to become increasingly reliant on people like me with the skills I have to hold on to what we have left. The absolute truth is that we're fighting a war over there. These guys are using guns, military tactics, and they're coming after the rangers as much as they're coming after the animals. This is a war. Don't let anyone try and convince you or try and soften the message. This is a war that we're fighting to protect these animals. I can tell you right now, 100%, as much as we need these things to be happening, long term, another billboard in Asia, another policy change, or another conference is not going to save one of these animals today. The only thing that's going to save one of these animals today is a good man with a gun. Standing between that animal, man, woman, with one creature, standing between these animals and the bullet that's coming out of it. So we're an organisation that likes to go and deal with some of the shittiest situations in conservation. And so right now I'm going to give you an example of what we do in some of the areas that we work. I'm sorry that you guys over here can't see what's going on. This area down here, this yellow area, is called the Great Limpopo Transfrontier Park. It's one of the largest protected areas on the planet. It's the size of the Netherlands. It spans 3 countries. We're coming in here from space. We're going to go to 60,000 feet. This is South Africa over here. This is Zimbabwe, and this is Mozambique. So it spans 3 countries. The significance of this area here, Kruger National Park. So we focus on protecting elephant. We also focus on protecting rhino. What I'm going to talk to you about now is the most important rhino project in the world, and I'll prove it to you very easily. There's 25,000 rhino left in Africa. 20,000 of those are in one country, that's South Africa. 10,000 of those are in one park. That park is Kruger National Park, right here. All along the border of South Africa and Mozambique. Now, most of those rhino live in the southern quarter of the park. So you've got the highest concentration of one of the most highly targeted animals on this planet. One of the hardest animals to protect. So we started looking at this situation. This is a situation that's spiraling out of control. Rhino poaching is on a global stage. These animals have been predicted to be headed towards extinction in as little as a decade. And this is the epicenter. The southern part of Kruger National Park, this red square, I'm going to zoom in here. The southern part of Kruger National Park is where most rhino are killed each year. 70% of the rhino that are killed in South Africa each year are killed there. This area is the reason that this situation is on the global stage. As an international community who is constantly bombarded with losing situations, this is an opportunity for us to have a win. And we need a win, and this is a big win. It's an opportunity to take back a species that is headed towards extinction. The thing is though, although Kruger accounts for 70% of rhinos' deaths each year, this is 60% of their rhino here, 30% of their rhino here. This is the southern part of Kruger National Park. Although Kruger accounts for 70% of the deaths each year, and there are 420 rhino organisations operating in South Africa, collecting money, raising money, and putting it into various reserves, despite the fact this southern section of Kruger, southern quarter of Kruger National Park, has more rhino in it than the collective 450 other private game reserves in South Africa. This is the most highest density, highest volume, highest number of rhino, not only in South Africa but on the planet. It's right here. And there's 420 rhino organisations operating here. Now, 80% of the people who do the poaching across this border come from Mozambique. So in 2013, we're 6 years into a losing war, I decided to go over and have a look at what was going on in this piece of land here called the Greater Lubombo Conservancy. A piece of land that separates most of the world's rhino from most of the world's rhino poachers. What we saw is armed civilians picking up weapons, crossing an international border, going up against larger, more regular but less mobile forces such as special operations and the range of forces that were operating in there, and then crossing back through familiar territory and protected by the local population. It's guerrilla warfare. But one thing that we didn't see is that despite the fact there's 420 organisations operating over here, how many do you think were operating in this piece of land? Zero. Piece of land that separates most of the world's rhino, most of the world's rhino poachers. The most critical piece of land on the planet for rhino conservation. It's an area which had the least amount of support, but stood to benefit the greatest number of rhino. And remember, when I say rhino, we're talking about all animals here. It's one of the largest protected areas on the planet. Not only that, everything this species represents to us. So we went in here, 2013, we started supporting areas up the top. We've now established ourselves in this entire red area, the 9th of June last year. Our main objective was to, one, recreate a population for rhino back in Mozambique, a safe habitat for rhino back in Mozambique. The second one was to stop poachers from entering into this big Great Limpopo Transfrontier Park from areas that we operate in. A rhino at this stage, wandering across the border from Kruger National Park into Mozambique, had a life expectancy of less than 24 hours. So we're going into the hardest country on the planet for a rhino to exist and trying to run a rhino protection program. Recruited young local men and some women from the local communities. We trained these guys up, we gave them a uniform, we gave them purpose. We made them believe that their job is the most important job in the world, and it is. These are the guys who are out there right now, sweating, patrolling, suffering, persevering, to hold on to what we have left. These guys are the reason that we have a purpose to sit here tonight for, in Los Angeles, and discuss, because these guys are out there right now on the front lines doing it, risking their life every day. 90% of what we do as an organisation is manage people. The first 90% of what we do is managing people. It's making these guys believe in what they do, giving them the training, the equipment, the leadership to go out there and do their job. Now, the best thing these guys can have is motivation. When these guys have motivation, they're going to get up every day and they're going to go out, they're going to walk 20 miles. When they're walking 20 miles, they're going to find footprints in the sand or the dirt. When they find the footprints in the dirt, we start tracking poachers. We start tracking poachers, we start hunting men. We hunt men, we stop them. We save an animal from being killed. That is what these guys do. It doesn't come from not having motivation. You need to have motivation. Unless you get that first 90% right, it doesn't matter if you've got the best drones in the world, it doesn't matter if you've got the best intelligence in the world, or the best night vision or thermal imaging, nothing else matters unless you have the first 90% right. The first 90% is making sure these guys have the basic stuff they need to do their jobs. Animals helping animals. This is Jurg, sitting next to around 25 pounds of rhino horn. So you do the maths on that at $40,000 a pound. This was taken from poachers that were exiting out of Kruger National Park. What we try and do is we have an intelligence network that operates in Mozambique. An informer network that feeds information to us from as far east as possible, as far into the country as possible. It allows us to try and get in front of the curve. We then patrol our eastern boundary. We're looking for footprints. We want to find footprints of guys coming into our area, coming across the fence. A ranger will look at the ground like you read the front page of the newspaper. And tracking is a perfect combination of art and science. The science is the side where you can look at a track and you can determine that a beetle has crossed that track or a bird has walked over it at a certain time of day, or the sides have deteriorated because of the sun and the wind. And you can tell that that track is either 20 minutes old or 2 hours old. The art of tracking, which is very rare, because you can teach someone how to paint, but you can't make them be an artist. The art of tracking comes when you get into the mind of the person you're hunting. And you're not looking at the ground anymore, but you're looking into the future. You're looking where these guys are going, where they're going to be. That then allows us to get our guys dropped in helicopters or on ground, moved into positions for ambush. We then use the helicopters and start doing dummy drops, which makes the poachers think that teams are being dropped in certain areas. It channels them through to a certain area, and we're able to be very effective at what we do. Zerg will get on tracks as well. He has a GPS tracking collar, not in this picture. It allows him to be unclipped off the leash, and he will go and start tracking, running at full pace, and he can track much faster than a human can. That the chopper will be following him. Now the problem with Zerg is he's a pointer, so he's very good at tracking, but his modus operandi when he reaches the poacher is to try to lick them to death. We need to make sure that when Zerg is doing his thing, that we're very close behind him. I didn't realise too when I put this together, Zerg had a little bit of lipstick going as well. That's exciting. I left it in there though. Yeah. Yeah, if a man can't have a little bit of excitement, I mean, what's the point? Zerg has led us into a village where poachers have gone out and tried to seek a safe house, and I need you guys, for me, to get out of your mind the ideological convenience of a poor African living in a mud hut trying to put food on the table for the family. This is organised crime that we're dealing with here. These poachers are getting paid up to $20,000 a night. Okay, these guys are driving around in brand new cars, wearing smartphones, designer clothes, some of them living in double-story houses. These are like guys who are selling crack or robbing banks to put food on their family's table. Okay, that's the difference between us as an organisation and the organisations that's trying to deal with subsistence poaching. The person who's trying to just poach to put food on the table. You don't call us if your cat's stuck in the tree. You call us if there's a real big shitty situation and you've got organised crime that you need a special operations like team to go in and sort out. And so we're dealing with local mafia here. These are people that are very intimidating. I'm in the process now of dealing with a situation where our rangers have been attacked in their own homes, in their own villages, in front of their families, dragged out of bed, tortured. One of them was abducted overnight. His body was found the next morning in a ditch. Fortunately, he was alive, but these guys have now brought it to our doorstep because we've been so effective in what we do. So we are dealing with a continuously evolving insurgency. Everything we do, these guys are trying to evolve, and they're now moving into scare tactics, attacking us and attacking our families. And we need to, at the moment, what we're doing is putting together a campaign to try and elevate what we are doing there to the next level, to deal with what we're facing. These are level 1 poachers. There's 5 levels to poaching. You're level 1, that's the guy that pulls the trigger. Level 2 is the guy that's paying the teams to pull the trigger. Level 3 is a buyer and trafficker, local buyer and trafficker. Level 4 is the guy that's taking off the continent. And level 5 is the head of the snake. That's the guy in Asia who's running the entire syndicates. Late entry fee. Our job is to go after level 1, level 2, and level 3 guys. This hasn't been happening in Mozambique before. Mozambique is where most rhino horn leaves the continent. So this has not been happening in that country. So we've now gone in there and established our operations, which has allowed us to build up very good relationships with the government. We have the military, the police, the environmental paramilitary police, and police investigations that are deployed with us as part of our operation. Our operation is run by Colonel Lionel Dyke, former commander of the Zimbabwe Special Forces for 9 years. He led the United Nations into Iraq in 2003, and he started and grew what became one of the biggest demining companies in the world. So he's a serious campaigner, but this is a serious operation. Everything we do is mapped in terms of data. The data goes into the University of Maryland. The team there is headed up by Professor Thomas Snitch. Tom Snitch was the guy that was contracted by the Department of Defense. He identified the algorithms in Iraq and Afghanistan of where roadside bombs were being placed. He used 24-hour drone surveillance from the generals and wound the tapes back and worked out to within a 93% accuracy range of where the bomb factories were. Next thing, Delta Force knocks on the door, and guys like me don't get blown up when we go out on operations. So they've created what they call the APE, the anti-poaching engine. So everything from incursions, exits, previous incidences, where the rhinos are moving, waterways, vegetation, holes in the fence, hot spots from the local communities, forensic or information that's been forensically extracted from mobile phones. It goes into the system, and we're told where to put the limited amount of resources we have to have the maximum effect. It's frustrating for me coming from Iraq and a special operations background and being able to have anything we need at our fingertips. I'm on patrol in my vehicle, I push 2 red buttons, I got Delta Force or US Rangers there and an Apache gunship within 5 minutes. You come over here and you see guys walking around in the bush, some of them are on bare feet. Lucky if they've got a couple of rounds of ammunition in their weapons. And these guys are protecting the heart and lungs of the planet. Now it's okay for us as a species to put as much as we want into our national interests in terms of military budgets. It's okay for us as a species to put as much as we want into protecting our local interests in our law enforcement. But when it comes to protecting our natural interests, we're happy to function on the smell of an oily rag. And we are into the 6th mass great extinction. This is fact, this is a phenomenon. This is the first time in history that it's been created by human beings. So when I talk about the importance of holding on to what we have left and the job that these rangers do, I can't overemphasize that fact more. One of our missions was to create a safe habitat for rhinos back in Mozambique. Mozambique is now about to be officially reclassified as a rhino range state. Rhinos have come back across there, and from having a life expectancy of less than 24 hours, we now have a survival rate of 90%. For you guys that can't see, it's a picture of a rhino in Mozambique. I promise. This is a level 3 guy. So about 5 weeks ago, we had National Geographic magazine with us doing a story, a follow-up to the 2012 story that they did called Rhino Wars. About 4 minutes past 3 in the morning, 3 cars pulled up to a compound. We had an outer cordon, which locked off the compound, and an inner cordon, which locked off the house, and an entry team. We had the police and the military with us, and an arrest warrant. This is a level 3 guy. He had a sack put over his head. He's taken back to base, handcuffed to the floor. As soon as the sun came up, he was taken by helicopter because it was too dangerous for us to move him by road because of the criminal syndicates that we're dealing with and the fear of interception on road. And he was taken to police headquarters. 2 minutes after he was arrested, the minister was notified. And this is the exciting thing in Mozambique at the moment. There's a genuine willingness to try and get on top of this problem, but there's a lack of capacity. And that's why they're partnering with organisations like ourselves to try and get on top of these types of problems. To the point where they have now asked us to run anti-poaching training and operations for all the national parks in the southern part of the country. So all this has been achieved in Mozambique in less than 11 months. The next two slides are the most important slides you're going to see for the night, because it tells a story of where we're going in terms of a project and where we need to go to replicate it. This is the southern quarter of Kruger National Park. I'm just gonna, I'll do a little snippet. Maybe I won't. This is going to be an expensive slide. I don't know if that'll turn around. I'll show you guys after. Every yellow dot is a dead rhino. 2015. And not just one dead rhino, some of these are multiple carcasses. White rhino particularly hang around in herds, so it's not uncommon for a poacher to come in and shoot 3 or 4 rhino at a time. So every one of these dots represents an incident where at least one rhino has been killed. This is just the southern quarter of part of Kruger National Park. This is the border here between Mozambique and South Africa. This is 2015. We came into this area here on the 9th of June 2015. Most of these yellow dots in here occurred prior to our occupation in Mozambique. A lot of these dots over here that are happening were happening by guys that are crossing through from Mozambique and coming back. The trends have changed, and I'll go over that in a minute. So we went in here, June 2015. I want to show the stats to date of rhino deaths in southern Kruger National Park since we have gone in to the hardest country on the planet for a rhino to exist and the most critical piece of land on the planet for rhino conservation. So we have not only gone in there and stopped poachers from accessing these areas, but we've been arresting a lot of level 1, a lot of level 2 guys, and now in the last month, 5 weeks, 2 level 3 guys. So we're not cutting the head off the snake in Asia, but we are continuously hitting these guys in the vital organs, which is in Mozambique. 7 years into a losing war, people are proposing an international trade in rhino horn, hot pursuit using South African forces into Mozambique, a shoot-on-sight policy for armed poachers, a high-voltage electric fence along the border, and mass relocation of rhino out of the park at the cost of $45,000 an animal. All that before anyone thought, hang on, if all the rhino are here and all the poachers are here, what's going on in the middle? You know, let's go to the source of the problem and try and deal with it there. And we run an organisation with a special forces mandate. We don't have big overheads. The money we spend goes to the ground. It goes to ranges. We don't have fancy types of equipment. We're not trying to look for some shortcut. What we do is we get boots on the ground. We go back to basics and we use these guys with the best tool we have in conservation. The South African government has now asked us to set up here a place called Tetemusha, the southwest corner of Kruger National Park. And just to take you back 2 slides, give you an understanding of why it's important to lock off this orange area. If we lock off this orange area the way we've locked off this area, we can essentially cut off, up here is a very well-functioning reserve, we can essentially cut off access into the highest concentration of rhino in the world. And it's not about, the thing is, people say, why doesn't Kruger look after the problem? Why are they dealing with this problem? The thing is, once the poachers are in there, all they need to do is pull the trigger. You need to stop poachers from getting in there in the first place. But in doing so, we also expand the areas that rhinos can wander. And we have achieved what no other organisation has achieved with 9 years now into a losing war. So from 2010 to 2014 in Kruger National Park, there was an on average increase in carcasses of 55% each year. Last year, after we went into Mozambique, there was a 0.1% increase. And 2 weeks ago, the Minister for Environment in South Africa announced a 23% decrease in rhino poaching in Kruger National Park. in front of any room of conservationists, any rhino organisation, and put my hand on my heart and say this is the most important project in the world for protecting rhino. And not just rhino, but everything that animal represents. I read something a few weeks ago as an old Indian legend that said that when we die and go to heaven, there's a bridge you must cross. And at the head of that bridge is every animal you've met throughout your life. And those animals, based on how you've treated them, will decide who gets to cross that bridge and who does not. So I thought it was very powerful. Our intellect is too limited to understand the language of animals, but the language of suffering is universal. We as a species need to understand that not only protecting animals, but protecting the environment is the key to our future. I don't know what our generation or what our species is going to have on its headstone, but I want to be part of the last generation that has a negative impact on this planet. Our generation will be judged by our moral courage to protect what's right. And every worthwhile action is going to require a level of sacrifice. A level of sacrifice like these guys who are out there now delivering. We've got to stop looking for a silver bullet in conservation. There's no new fancy bit of equipment that's going to go out there and patrol these areas. No new camera that's going to see in the future, and no new crystal ball that's going to tell us where we need to be. The silver bullet already exists. And it's these well-trained, well-equipped, well-motivated rangers who believe that their job is the most important job in the world. And that's what we're about. So thank you very much. Is that under 3 hours? Okay. We're going to do question time now, and then we're going to do, anyone that wants to hang around, we're just going to do a quick auction. We're going to auction off some pictures that were taken by Brent Sturton during his first trip with us out to Zimbabwe when they shot rhino wars in 2012. Probably shouldn't say shot. Photographed rhino wars in 2012. They've just come out and done a second story with us, biggest selling magazine in the world. These pictures, this one in particular was part of a series that won the World Press Photo Award for Brent that year. So he's one of the most acknowledged photographers in the world. We're also going to be, we have an opportunity for people to come out to Zimbabwe and spend time with us as part of our Green Army program. That's where we have every second month groups of up to 10 to 12 people. They come out and they live with our rangers in the bush. They go patrolling with our rangers. They live with our rangers and they understand what it's like to be a ranger. Now, this is a two-way street. It allows someone to come out and spend time walking in the bush, not driving around on the back of a truck drinking gin and tonics, but actually walking with these animals and these rangers in the bush. And it works out like less than just over $100 a day. So it's the cheapest way that you're going to see as much African wildlife up close on foot that you're going to get. But the other way, which is the most important thing, is that it makes rangers understand that people around the world give a shit about what they're doing and willing to get on a plane and come over there and spend time with them on the front lines. And there's some people in here that have been out and done the program, spend time with those guys, and then we'll also, the last thing we'll be auctioning is trips to come out with me personally, literally behind enemy lines into Mozambique. I'll take 4 people maximum at a time. It's not a place you can get in a car and go and visit. This is this is like Kentucky, Baghdad. We go in, military escort. You then get picked up. You'll be flying around with a chopper. You'll be in the aeroplane, working with the canine units. So have a think about that while we go through question time, and then we'll get stuck into it. So questions from the floor. Sir.
I've heard reports, and I don't know whether they're true, they seem to have come from reputable sources, that, obviously the Chinese have had have made huge investments into sub-Saharan Africa in the last, 10 years or so. I've heard that the governmental anti-poaching budgets in South Africa have actually been cut over the past X number of years, and some people speculate that that's actually because of Chinese investment in the country. Have you found that to be true? Have you heard that?
Africa is in the process of being recolonized by the Chinese. That's something that's happening. We see it very evidently in countries like Zimbabwe, particularly Harare, where they've just built a new military training college for Chinese officers just outside of there. In terms of them having a direct correlation to a drop in budgets for conservation, I have not seen, witnessed or heard of that. What I have seen is them moving into private and putting pressure on private areas, private reserves to take over those places and turn them from wilderness areas into places where they can grow food. Look at China. China is trying to buy up land all around the planet because they're going to have a food crisis. Well, they've got 1.4 billion people or something they're trying to feed there. So Africa is being raped, and not just by the Chinese, but it's being raped as a continent. And again, the big long-term solutions are above my pay grade. I'm the guy in the weeds. We're the guys at the coalface holding on to what we have left. So by the time someone has a better solution than actually standing out there protecting these animals with a gun, there's actually something left to work with. Yes, ma'am.
I'm so honored to be in your presence. I mean, I just, your story and how you got there is miraculous and wonderful.
Thank you.
I want to know what do you need? Like, what is your budget? What's going to get you to the next step? What are you working with? Other organizations like IFAW, because I know IFAW is wanting to kind of get into this more on the ground work. Are you getting cooperation from organizations, or are people kind of holding you at bay? What's happening?
We are starting to get more investment from some of the multiple organisations operating in South Africa who are investing money into rhino conservation. The thing about where we operate is still we are the only boots on the ground organisation operating in there. In terms of non-profits, there's nobody else in there. And it's because Mozambique is a hard place to operate. It's a hostile area, and it's not everyone's cup of tea. There are community initiatives that are taking place, and we won't go into an area and do a job unless there are community initiatives that are happening, because I understand that's where the answer lies. But there's going to be 2 billion people on that continent by 2040, and I don't know how you get a person who doesn't know where the next meal is coming from, or to understand the value in the long-term preservation of wildlife. And I'm not talking about the rhino poachers and these mafia groups now, but the average African that's just trying to feed their family. This is the crisis we face. We, as a species, we're smart enough to de-sex or neuter our cats and dogs, but we struggle with the ethics of maintaining a healthy human population. So again, above my pay grade. We are working with other organisations, particularly the South African government and the Mozambique governments. The Mozambique government for us is the most important one. People often ask how much money are they giving you. The thing is, they don't have the money to give. The most important thing you can get from an African government is mandate. A decision in Africa is so hard to get, and that's what makes it so valuable. And they've given us that mandate and deployed their own troops underneath our command to go out and do this job. So we are open to working with other organisations. We do work with other organisations that are across the border, and there are very few that are in the country but working in other areas. But also keep close contact with people who are organisations that are trying to deal with the long-term issues such as demand reduction. in Asia, research and development. But yeah. Yes, ma'am.
So what
Not quick
happens-
enough, sorry. Yeah.
So what happens when you come up against a poacher, and what's the face of a poacher? Is it somebody from Mozambique that's really has a, is trying to just survive on their own, and what happens?
No, okay, so these groups are operating, these are insurgent-like groups. It's guerrilla warfare overlaid with organised crime. These are guys who are carrying heavy caliber rifles, and they're also running a guy with an AK-47 for protection. Okay, so these guys are well trained, they're intimately knowledgeable about the bush, the behaviour of the animals, how to move through the bush, going undetected, how to cover their tracks, which makes it harder for us to find, locate and hunt them. As an organisation, we've tried to step back from policy such as that in Zimbabwe, where you have a shoot-on-sight policy for armed poachers. What we try and do is teach our rangers and work with local police in correct crime scene preservation, evidence collection, and the correct judicial process. And we've adopted a Western law enforcement model where we try and use the minimum amount of force required to get the job done. That doesn't mean that lethal force cannot be used in the first instance if life is in immediate danger. But what we need to be seen as is an organisation that is not running around out there as some rogue military force out there just hunting poachers. Because you've got to look at it this way, and the way I frame it is, think of a group of Pakistanis coming over here and setting up a paramilitary training base up the road. And how long is that going to last? Whatever their purpose is. Sorry to you if there's any people from Pakistan in the room, but I'm just trying to frame this thing for you. So you've got now a group of largely white ex-special forces guys that have gone into countries that have black governments, set up training institutions for paramilitary training, which train the most widely dispersed groups of armed units in the country. Armies have big bases, national parks are all over the place. And so that for an African government is a threat. So we've been doing this for 7 years now. So we build up good relationships with the government. We want them to know exactly what we're doing before we've even decided ourselves. That we don't want to surprise them. It's a very hard and tedious line that we walk, but it's an important line. Countries like Zimbabwe, which the World Bank ranks as around 174 out of 189 countries on the ease of doing business studies, it's a hard place to operate. It's a hard place to get things done, but it doesn't make the lives of those animals, the job, any less worthwhile. Sorry, I missed you. Okay. Okay.
I actually just want to share a little bit of good news for anybody who hadn't heard it, which is that, in case people didn't know, because I don't think it was in the LA Times, the US government's just made the sale of ivory in the US illegal finally. That just happened a couple of days ago, so I just wanted to...
Yeah. And again, ivory over there is a currency. There's the same organisations involved with child prostitution, human trafficking, drugs, guns, ivory, and rhino horn are just another form of currency for these guys. That's the way organised crime works. One thing we saw in South Africa is once rhino poaching took off, cash in transit, so what do you guys call your cash trucks here? Like your armoured vehicles. As rhino poaching took off, cash in transit robberies had a steep decline, and it just means that people are moving to an easier target where they can make just as much money with less risk. So this is the sort of thing that we're dealing with. So I don't know what that sort of policy change is going to have for us on the ground. This is a problem that's been intensifying for decades, and people say, what do you think about the ivory burn and the rhino horn burn? And there's no actual, it sends a message, it's a good headline grabber. It gets people talking about it, which is important. It creates awareness, and when people are aware, they can act. But on the ground, there's no scientific evidence or research that's been done that's been able to link the burning of these stockpiles to a reduction in poaching. All it's done is created less of a black market commodity, which perhaps pushes the price of what is left out there even higher. We don't know. I owe you an answer.
When you do arrest someone, if you don't shoot them, what kind of sentences do they get? Are they stiff, and is there government corruption that gives them an easy?
So 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago, if you stole a cow in Mozambique, you get 10 years in prison. If you shot a rhino or an elephant, you'll get around a $20 fine. This has changed. Mozambique has changed their policy. It's now 10 to 12 years jail sentence for poachers. So, the last 29 guys that we've arrested, most of them are still in jail. That's because we've gone through the correct judicial process in preparing the case, preparing the evidence, making sure all the paperwork is filled out correctly, because these guys hire the best lawyers. So we've got to make sure we've got the best case for prosecution to present to the magistrate. There's also a lot of training of magistrates around the countries that's going on, particularly in South Africa and also Zimbabwe. So it makes magistrates and prosecution aware of what the true sentences should be of wildlife crime, because these things are often overlooked. Yes, ma'am.
Thanks for coming to LA again. I'll say that. I'm curious, when you look at the Mozambique area that you're working in, and then the lower part of Kruger, I'm curious how many park rangers there are to deal with those areas, and also what you think is needed to further the decline in poaching.
Thank you, and I didn't fully answer your question before. What do we need? So at the moment, we're running a force over there of around 125 guys in that area. That includes the military that's deployed underneath us, the pilots, the rangers, the senior non-commissioned officers, the colonel who is overseeing operations. It includes all of those people. The village police, the people that have just been attacked in their own homes, in front of their own families, tortured, beaten, had all their properties destroyed, and that out of all that, the thing that hit me the most is that their bicycles were broken and destroyed. Now the rangers are poor guys. They don't have a lot of money, and a bicycle for them is probably the most valuable possession. And so yeah, they got beaten and tortured, and that's sad, but the bicycles were destroyed. And that for me, you know, these guys work a lifetime and they will die with nothing but a priceless soul. And to see these guys have their most valuable possession destroyed was probably what actually upset me the most. What we need, this program and its expansion as part of a blue sky picture is a $1.6 million a year operation. That's to bring it around the southern part of Kruger National Park and lock off access for poachers into the highest concentration of rhino in the world. A lot of our money comes from people who decide they just want to donate 25 bucks a month. A lot of our money comes from people who decide they want to buy a print for $100 or whatever it may be. A lot of money comes when we do these fundraisers. We just did 4 talks similar to this in Australia and raised $150,000. So you know my specialty is counterinsurgency warfare. It's not public speaking, it's not fundraising, but I can pay someone to be a project manager. I can't pay someone to come over here and be the founder of an organisation. So I need to come over here and give you guys the message. Things we need, things that we're working towards is a new aircraft, $70,000 for a Savannah aircraft. $40,000 will keep our canine units in the field for the year. $3,600. Trains, uniforms, feeds, and pays a ranger for an entire year. That's a person that has been taken out of the local communities, a place where they could otherwise be corrupted into becoming a poacher because of the money that can be made, and it allows us to give them a career. $2,000 US is a reward that will go to the group of rangers that arrest a poacher or seize a heavy caliber rifle. That's one of the things that we've been targeting, is these heavy caliber rifles, trying to get them out of the system. There's a shortage of these heavy caliber rifles, and each one of these rifles that we've been seizing, some of them have been told by the people we're taking them from have been responsible for the death of up to 50 animals, rhino. So it's very important. It's a very specialised piece of equipment, but it's very important for us to get it out of the system. And this reward money, these rangers collectively are doubling and tripling their salary every month. Some of the best paid rangers in the country because of that, because of how effective they've been in terms of arresting poachers. $30,000 is a brand new Toyota Land Cruiser. The selfish part of me looks at the depreciation of the South African rand and the Mozambique medical against the US dollar over the last 12 months. It was about 50%, which is bad for the economy over there, but it means when we invest money over here, or when we have investors over here, and they look where the money is going, the actual transfer of US dollar into the South African rand is huge. We're getting huge bang for our buck in terms of what we're able to achieve with the money that's donated by people from around the world. And these are not Africa's rhinos. They're not Mozambique's rhinos, they're not South Africa's rhinos. These are a global asset, and it's a global responsibility for us to look after them. I come over here for 3 reasons. One is to create awareness and be an activist. The second reason is to raise funds. The third and most important reason is to tell people about return on investment, what they've invested in and what it's achieved. Because we do a lot with a little. We're not the guys that have air-conditioned offices in every city around the world. We're the guys that an office for us is a Wi-Fi connection and a roof over our head. That's it. Our money goes to the front lines, directly to the front lines, and that's where it's spent. That's where it belongs. One more question. Yes?
How many acres are you currently protecting, and what are you seeking to expand into in the near term?
We're currently at around 170,000 acres just in that section in Mozambique. The rangers that we have supported or command at the moment patrol or help protect 5 million acres of wilderness across southern Africa in the multiple projects that we have and the multiple projects we support. We've supported over 45 projects now, alongside our own projects with investments up to that of around $40,000 US. But this project here is very niche in that we don't have to patrol a lot of land to create what we call our sphere of influence. So we don't take over the communities, but we have people working in the communities. We don't take over Kruger National Park, but our sphere of influence in terms of what we're doing in the Greater Lubombo Conservancy extends into these areas. So we have 170,000 acres, which we need to practically double to replicate what we're doing around the southern part of Kruger National Park. So that's where we're at. And inch by inch, mile by mile, we're going to cut that border off, because when we do, we are going to not only continue on the trend that we've been on in terms of reducing rhino poaching, but we're going to be able to take this off the global stage and have a collective win as an international family for taking one of the most endangered species off that list. One more.
And I know the answer to this, but I think it's worth sharing. And how much is it an acre to protect? I mean, I think a little bit of money goes so far here, so how much?
Yeah, true. It costs us, at the moment, we work on 3 tiers. Tier 1 is like what we could call a forward reconnaissance. We'll go in and do an assessment of an area and put in a basic level of protection. Level 2 is scaling up to, we're starting to fight back. Level 3 is complete domination. Level 3 costs us around $7.20 an acre at the moment. So, but what we have is a scaling of economy where we have got already invested a lot into major infrastructure on the ground in terms of the operations centre, the digital radio network, the vehicles that are on the ground, And so the money that's invested now is actually, it's starting to cost us less per acre to protect. But, and then there's also community stuff that we're involved with in terms of policing in the community, so it's hard for us to measure those acres, but in the areas that are fenced off, that's what it's costing us.
What's your schedule as far as where are you speaking in the US so we can hook you up with potential donors, you know?
I'm speaking everywhere.
Okay, so California, New York.
No, I've just done New York, Greenwich, Stanford, DC. I'm here in LA. Got a black eye in LA.
Sorry.
You should see the other guy.
I can imagine.
No, there was 5 of them actually. I got jumped the other night walking home, and got a.
Where do you go from here?
Sorry?
Where do you go from
Soho
here?
House,
Well, I know
right?
tomorrow night.
Yeah,
but
Soho House, then San Francisco, then Carmel.
San Francisco, okay.
Yeah. San Francisco, Silicon Valley, Jackson Hole, Aspen. Yeah.
Is it written somewhere with dates? Because I want to.
Yeah. This lady over here with the black and white scarf on pen. I figured out a long time ago that it's much easier to have a woman run your life than try and do it yourself. You're still struggling with this multitasking thing. So you know, the fact that I'm talking and standing at the same time now is, you know, for a man, that's an achievement. So yes.
Do you find the people in these countries are embracing conservation now, or is that still another battle to be won?
It's an ongoing battle, and again, it's a battle where we have an increasing human population putting a more determined level of pressure on a decreasing amount of natural resources. There is I read somewhere 1 in 13 people on the continent though is employed somewhere through the tourism sector. Now the tourism sector in Africa is so important. It provides food and housing for so many people. So, and most people come to Africa to see the animals. So if we lose these animals, the flow-on effect is going to be catastrophic. These wilderness areas are like a car. The animals inside them are like the engine in the car that makes that wilderness area work. Now, if you take the animals out, you start to lose the need for the fences, the anti-poaching units. Then the people come in, they cut down the trees, the waterways die. So these animals are the engine in the vehicle that we need to make the heart and lungs of the planet pump. Thank you very much to everybody for coming out, 1, listening, and 2, contributing, and 3, being part of our extended family, and you know, new members to our family around the world. So we only do what we do because of people like you. So thank you very much.